stream. I'm very exciting today, not only because I'm excited because the guest, but we have a refreshing topic. We usually talk about identity access management, talk about things that is very like software engineering. But today I am with Justin Samuels, and we are going to talk about developer conferences and communities.
I
But
love it.
instead of me introducing Justin, why wouldn't you introduce yourself?
Hey, everybody. So my name is Justin Samuels. I am the founder and the CEO of Render ATO, where we're a technology conference focused on continuing education. And we happen each and every summer, which is June over here for us. An amazing time. We know how to balance education with having a great time.
Yeah, I met Justin back in June when we sponsored Render, and with me another special guest today, the man behind everything you see at Permit, Daniel, who ran the booth at Render. So, you wanna...
Hi there. So Daniel Bass, I do product marketing at Permit.io. Yes, I had the pleasure of being a guest at Render Atlanta a month ago. Has it been a month?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an amazing experience. But yes, I did. From booth design to like a lot of the developer experience at the booth, and just talking to folks, handing out socks, giving annoying pitches, and trying to make good jokes.
Great.
Y'all had, I just want to compliment y'all real quick that y'all had one of the most cleverest booths. I was like, wow, like they came over and they built their own booth out using parts over here and called it a day, but it was a home run. It looked great. So amazing. Kudos to y'all.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think that's maybe for a different topic, but the way to do a good booth is art, and Daniel is definitely own a lot of this art. And the way I must say that the first I saw, that was the first time that we planned this kind of a booth. And when I first saw that, I was like, it's so eclectic. And when I saw that in real time, like learning a picture, I said, wow, that's so good. As you said, it was like built of many pieces, but together when you just stand in front of that, it was look like a real super expensive booth. And
convincing Gabriel that we need the budget for a lava lamp was a challenge.
Oh, yeah.
Hey,
why would you need to level up?
Y'all were the talk of the town. One of the most talked about booths we had the whole time. So a great job again.
Yeah, thanks for that. But let's get back to Render. How did this all start?
So I started Render because I was traveling a ton to go to conferences, like how any engineer is, trying to honestly network and trying to learn the next best thing. And with that, I was thinking to myself on a plane ride one day, going back to California, I said, why am I having to travel across the country if I live in Atlanta, which is a global hub? And you could catch flights anywhere here. It is the world's busiest airport. So we have destinations everywhere. And I said, well, let me look to see what conferences are here. There are other conferences here, but I felt like it was missing that West Coast feel where you have a ton of education going on, which is your workshops and your seminars, but you'll also have a party element to it too. Because when you include that party element, that is when the pure and the raw networking can happen then. So I said, okay, I'm gonna come out here, build this here, and I'm gonna do it in a way that pays homage to the culture of the city and pays homage to the people that came before us. And I'm gonna make sure that it is educationally sound so that you can't compare us to another conference educationally or from a social networking point of view.
How many years that render happened?
So technically, we always tell people that this is a year number 3, which we had just had. And the reason why is because of COVID. So the first one was in September 2021, which was by a prayer. I was happy that one got done. I mean, it was supposed to happen in 2020. So we had to move it back a whole year, and we had to do it in September. It was supposed to be in May. So moved it back a whole year, had it in September, and then after that, we then went to do the next one June after that. So I count the first one as the a prequel, like the a build up, and I count every summer conference as an actual conference after that. So technically four, but I always say a three.
So I would say it's not only the biggest one in the US, it's only the fastest growth one. Like 4 years to get how many you have this like 5K ticket?
Yeah. So in 2023's conference, we had 3,000 people. This year we had 4,500 people. In 2021, 350 people, and in 2022, 1,500. So it's been growing pretty fast.
Yeah, how do you manage that's growing so short amount of time?
I think the key to managing it is can come from that old quote of if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. And what I had to do to achieve this scale so quickly, I had to hire, and I had to hire good people. And I had to hire people that I could trust with my vision to help me scale the company out and to help me achieve what my numbers are today.
Yeah, it's probably, I mean, now the story is even more fascinating me. I saw when I've been there again, my first time, a lot of like local community events around it, like Atlanta Tech Week and so on.
Mhm.
Are that's part of Render, or you just get them all together?
Yeah, so in 2023, we had a launch at Atlanta Tech Week as a way for us to help with an increasing audience of entrepreneurs. There's a ton of people that come to the conference who don't identify as technical owners, whether that's a software engineer, whether that's a graphic designer, whether that's a product or a project manager. These are people that we kind of consider technical owners at the conference who wants to go in depth beyond the actual README docs and learn at the conference. But we also noticed when we looked through our data sets that it was people that were coming that identified as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. And we didn't want to lose that demo. So what did we do? We said, great, let's partner with Atlanta Tech Week. Oh, there isn't in Atlanta Tech Week. Okay, great. We'll just go ahead and just build it. And
Wow,
we had a launched it in 2023. And then in 2024, it's been growing like a wildfire.
amazing. I must ask, how do you balance? I mean, I know that you work as a software engineer. How do you balance like this full-time job as an engineer and full-time job as the CEO and the leader of all this operation?
Yeah, it goes back to being prioritized. Like you want to be prioritized with your day, with your time, with the tasks that you have to get done for your organization to view your day as being optimized and successful, and B for you as a person to feel optimized, organized, and successful. So it's honestly just old school time management, blocking off your calendar, having a list of priorities that you honestly know has to get done, and just the other part to it is early morning and late nights. I proudly begin my day at 4 a.m. Eastern, and I go to bed around 10 o'clock p.m. So
That's I mean, this 4 a.m. to 10 o'clock is something that I wish for myself to get. I think it's also like in the days of the screens and instance messages, it's getting even harder to manage that strict, because
As long as you don't expect it from me, Gabriel, I'm good.
and,
oh yeah,
and and it makes it easier to do a business with global companies. Like
Of course,
y'all aren't based here, so when I talk to Gabriel, it'll be like 9 p.m. here, but it'd be
of course.
his early in the morning time. It just it makes me be more flexible for my clients at the end of the day.
yeah. Yeah, I think it's smart. That's it's a set of like sleeping time is actually very good one. I want to ask something for me. Like we're doing DevRel, Daniel is do more the marketing side. I do some more technical part, and I find that balancing the focus between like operational and management and creation and engineering, it's very important, like to color your task and make the difference between the type of the task that you try to focus on. How do you find yourself like balancing it? You find it challenging?
I came up with my own system on how I go about prioritizing what needs to get done first and how much time I will give myself to complete that task. So it keeps me honest. And what I do is I have three categories: what needs to get done this week, what needs to get done next week, and then what needs to get done week after next. And then after I assign tasks into each bucket, I think of it like a Scrum Agile board. After I sign that out, I then story appoint them, but I story point them with a time. So I'm like, okay, how much time will this particular task take me? 5 minutes, 10 minutes? I just use increments of either 1, 5, 10, 2 hours, 5 hours, or 8+ hours. And I just add that onto all of my tasks. And then when it's all said and done, I can now say, okay, here's what got to get done this particular week, right? And these tasks right here will take 5 minutes to do. So what I do then is I will wake up in the morning. I'll say, okay, I have from 4 until 5 a.m. That's all I got. Okay, great. Let me quickly filter my entire list by everything that I could get done in an hour or things that could get done in increments of 5. And I'll just knock them out quickly. And then the next thing you know, I've completed the entire week like that.
Yeah, that sounds like a very extensive time management. So kudos for that. I think this
Thank you.
Yeah,
very
that's
important.
very impressive.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I would like to get not to the small task. I mean, one of the things that I found challenge balancing, community work and like day-to-day job is particularly like the 5-hour task. Do you have such kind of task like for render, or you try to break it down to tasks that you can find time in between?
Yeah, so like after this call, I have to go to a work meeting, right? So I take all my calls on my lunch break, like you see right now, 12 until like 1 o'clock. After that call, I don't have no free time until after hours, which is like around 5 o'clock. And then when 5 o'clock hit, I have a call at 6 o'clock. So I will actually sit down and I'll say, okay, I have an hour left. Let me now see what can I accomplish. And if I have a task that is over 2 hours, I usually try to like break it down to hand out in the company. So I'll say, okay, this particular task, I don't got to be hands on. I can actually hand it over to the accounting team, or I can hand it over to the payroll team. But I'll try to break it down to its simplest parts so that then anybody could then pick it up. And then I still hold the timeline accountable, meaning if it got to get done this particular week, even though I handed it off, it's on my agile board. So I want to complete it. So then I will check in on them to get it back in that timeline that I have outlined.
That's why
Gabriel,
I
you're
think,
muted. Yeah.
yeah, not muted anymore. I think I'll adopt some of this idea that might be work very well for us. I want to get back to a point that you mentioned earlier regarding the nationwide or the kind of global conferences that you used to travel. I must say that I've been in a lot of conferences, and personally, I love. I mean, when, for example, I doing CFPs or just visiting for my fun. I like these local 500 people conferences that you really know, people know each other. If you're a kind of stranger, you're very fast getting friends with people. Um, and usually the large one, like the nationwide one, is the ones that you're find your gang. Like, for example, if I'm in KubeCon, it's really hard for me if I don't have my gang around me. It's really hard.
Right,
Like,
right.
but in render, you have like 4,500 people, and you still feel this like local hub community where everyone know each other, everyone friend with each other. What is your like? How do you did it? How do you made it?
Yeah, so we believe at the conference as an organization that you put the community up first. So you put people up first, and if you put people up first, they will always sing your praises and they will help you out in areas that you can't honestly see. We all have a blind spots, and by us focusing on the people, which honestly make the conference what it is, it allows us to then enable them to allow people to have an even a better time, whether that's them taking people out to eat, whether that's them making new friendships that will now last an entire lifetime, or whether that is them opening the door for another person to apply for a job at their company. When you put people first, everything else flows on easily.
And it's
Uh,
actually a game. Yeah, go ahead, Daniel.
I think it was also very, we touched this point before, but it was also impressive to see. It's nothing that I've encountered in previous conferences, but you talked about the different, titles or the different roles that people have that attend the conference. And while it was a tech conference, the amount of creative people, of marketing people, of sales people, of HR people, of, very, very like diverse roles coming and asking the questions and listening to products and looking what's out there. It was very refreshing. It was a very different perspective. It it has a lot of benefits, and it creates much more interesting conversations. We get,
It does.
as a company having a booth at the event, we suddenly see a completely different angle of how we are perceived as a company, of how our product is perceived, and it's something that we don't usually see in, your standard go-to. We have front-end people, back-end people, security people. Like, we know how we're perceived in their eyes, but
Mhm.
suddenly seeing this new perspective was very interesting. So that was like one of my experience from render.
Yeah, and that's a good point because we always tell people when they become a corporate partner, throw everything out the door that you know about conferences, because our audience and our attendee base really don't care. They want to see how do you show up, and they want to engage with you in a very authentic way that allows you to, like you talked about, form new perspectives, and also figure out what potential blinders you can be missing by only being siloed when you go to, like you said, a CubeCon or any other con, a Black Hat or anything else like that, that has that very strong, a single track, single demographic audience that comes each and every year. Ours is pretty chaotic, but it's organized, chaotic.
Yeah, I think the thing that you put here, I think we also have this kind of discussion in Twitter, and also we saw the Stack Overflow survey a couple of days ago that full stacks developers now are more than front end and back end both. Like people are becoming full stack developer, and that's also something that happened in render, right? It started as more like front end slash like product, and
Yeah,
make much more the transition into the full stack. How that
absolutely.
happened?
So I am a proud front end engineer, no questions about it. Even though now, well, it's beginning to change, but at like one point in the engineering universe, it became like, oh, all you could do is a front end. And now we are beginning to see the opposite. Like, oh, great, I actually need a person dedicated to only doing front end. But I say that because when we began a render, I had the idea and I said, well, what ecosystem do I know the best? And at that time in 2019, when I first had the idea, I've been doing a React since 2014. And I think React came out in 20 like 13 or 12. So I was an early adopter. Got to hang around the code base, got to meet a lot of the core team. I was like entrenched. And for those who are engineering minded and watching the call, they could probably put what 1 + 1 = 2 now, which is yes, we are called a render because we named it after the render lifecycle method in the React framework. So we were with the intention of only being a React ecosystem conference. Well, in that, people from other places in the front end world, whether it's Angular, Vue, or anything else in between, became to come out the woodwork like, hey, I also want to come to this thing too. So we slowly moved it into just being a front end conference. That was supposed to happen in 2020. Because of COVID, we had, like I said earlier, pushed it back to September 2021. And we were probably a handful of lunatics trying to do an in-person event during COVID. I mean, it kind of seems crazy now, or it kind of seems normal now that we talk about it. But if you could just think back to September 2021, there was really not much happening in the entire world. It was still on pretty much a lockdown or kind of a lockdown, right? So us living in Georgia, we honestly didn't have a lockdown. So okay, great, we could have the conference. And I bring that up because when our team announced that we are having an in-person event, the entire developer world said, "Oh my God, thank you," because I'm tired of Zoom conferences. I'm tired of Discord. I'm tired of virtual. I need human interaction. And because of that happening, it now became front end engineers there, a back end engineers there. Anybody involved in a web came just to get out the house. And because of that, when we surveyed our audience, they expressed an interest in, hey, I do a Java, or hey, I do a PHP. I would love to talk at your conference. And I am also signing up to also bring a friend or two. I said, great. I'm not about to turn down the opportunity to build a thriving ecosystem, right? So I said, okay, great. You've told me this is like what you want us to do. I will now build it. And because I paid attention to our customer, and because I actually listened and enacted what they told me, that's how we jumped from a 350 all the way up to 1,500 in only 8 months when we had 2022 conference. Was that we gone from being siloed in only a React, heard our customer, and we then morphed slowly into the entire full stack.
I think one of the things that it affects most is actually the agenda. That's probably the first place when you sit at.
Mhm.
How do you balance it? I mean, before the conference, you do not have yet, the like percentage of like back and front end. How do kind of expect what will be the right balance of content across front and back end, product design, etc.?
Here's the thing: nobody knows what they are doing at all. I'm just going to be completely honest. We try to look at data, we try to query based upon when you purchase your ticket. We are asking you what are you most interested in, but usually by then it's too late because we begin our speaker lineup early. Usually our entire speaker lineup is announced by end of the year or like early February, right? So you hope to a God who you chose will now make everybody happy. It's impossible to make everybody happy, just completely impossible. But you can control what I have learned, and particularly after 2020 fourth conference, you can control who you put on a stage and their sequence. Meaning, one of the negative feedback points we got for 2024 conference was, hey, you have an amazing speaker A, amazing speaker B, amazing speaker C, amazing speaker D, all at the 2 p.m. time frame. I do not know who to choose because I'm actually huge fans of all of these people. And I said, dang, that's a good ass point. I really never had like thought about that way. So what we're doing for 2025 is we aren't becoming a single track conference at all, but we can control the overall theme of the stage. Meaning, if you're on our a web track, you only will ever be in room A. If you're on our a UX or a design track, you'll only ever be in room B. So now, amazing speaker A, B, C, D, and E, who are all on a web track, you could now catch them in the exact same room. And since they're in the same exact room, you don't have any overlaps now. Now they're all got their own unique time. And that took a lot to like I get to.
For sure. I'm just like this issue with having multiple stages and very interesting, people talking at the same time. This just made me think about how similar this challenge is to like I'm thinking music festivals, right?
Yes.
You have the main headliners and you need to make the decision of like who do I put at the same time? Who do I go to watch? Because you don't want to miss anything,
Mm-hmm.
but that's a very good solution. The genre division. Um,
Correct.
yeah,
Yeah. And it's crazy how simple it is, but it's complex too. Like there's a quote from Steve Jobs, which he says simplicity is actually hard because to make everything simplistic, you got to first begin at complexity. You know, so if you I think about writing the most elaborate hello world, you can make that in one single line. But then you might say, okay, how many bytes can I get that down to? And you can start doing all kind of craziness. And you could probably get it down to a couple of characters. And you're like, this is amazing. This is a masterpiece. I went from having a 30 characters on the screen to only having a 10. This is the most simplistic code possible. But then to even get to that point, you had to go through a lot of complexity. And there's even whole competitions on that. It's called a coda a golf, where it's all about taking an easy thing that you could usually write in code and how many bytes, what is the least amount of bytes you could get that easy code down to. Looks extremely simple when it's all said and done, but it's extremely complex to even get to that point of simplicity.
I can really like I feel this challenge all the time, like building like a landing page or a website for for marketing. If you want me to write a 3,000 word paper on how like role-based access control works, no problem. Give me 5 words. Explain to me this in 5 words that a person will read and completely understand your point. It's the exact same challenge, but out of the code world, but still close.
Yep.
But yeah, it really resonates with me.
Yeah. And I forgot what I was going to say now, but yeah, it's just one of those beautiful things that when you make things simple, it's actually making it simple for everybody. But when things go wrong, it's the hardest thing to ever fix.
Yeah,
Right.
and to build something simply is the biggest challenge always.
Mhm.
I would like to say, I mean, I get to your point regarding like the paralyzed talk. So when I start speaking, I always try to make myself like, the first in the day, the first after lunch, when people will get to a talks. And at some point, I had a talk at I think 5 p.m. And that was, I think it was like my fourth talk or something like that. And the room was full. That was the largest that I ever had. And then I understood the real thing about your schedule as a speaker. The
Yeah.
real thing is to find that you have the less competition, or at least so
Smart. Yeah.
right, that's the thing. I mean, people will come in 5 p.m., people will come in 2 p.m., but if you are in
Yeah.
2 p.m. and Kelsey Hightower is in the room behind
Yeah.
you, you don't have a chance. If you're like, even if you like after lunch. So and it leads me to this, like, you getting, I guess, back. I mean, a step back to the CFPs. You're getting, I guess, like thousands of thousands. What is
Yes.
like flow of work on it? Like filtering, accepting.
So this is a great question that I am happy to answer publicly. Um, we or I do not grade anybody's papers when they come in. I am completely removed from the call for paper a process because I just know too many people. I would introduce a bias. So to help prevent a bias, I went out and got an entire speaker team that the speaker team grades each and every paper. We use a Sessionize, which a Sessionize has a algorithm that you could choose how you want to grade each and every paper. And we use the chess strategy of grading papers. And what that means, very quickly, is if you ever took a survey and on question one, they ask you, is the sky blue? And you're like, yes. And then the next question is like, is the sky green? And you're like, no. And then the next question, they'll ask you, so if I were to tell you that today the sky is not green, but the sky is blue, would you agree? And then you got to really think about that. And you're like, yes, I would agree. And the reason why I ask you those three different ways is because it's trying to get a true a read on what is your intent with answering this question if I ask it three different ways. So when you're grading papers in a sessionize, you get the entire a prompt. A prompt comes up. It tells you about who it is, what other conferences they have spoke at in the past, and you get the entire abstract of the paper. And then you just rank it one through five. But just because you ranked it that one time, it'll also pop up two other times, but you don't know when. But you got to be like, oh, okay, I actually like this one multiple times for it to get a higher ranking. Or you might mess up and say, I like this one a lot. Then they'll show it to you 20 papers later, and you're like, oh, nah, I don't really like that one. Then they'll show it to you 100 papers later, like, oh, that one's okay. It'll take the average, and they're like, okay, based upon how you graded this exact same paper multiple times, here is where this paper ranks at, and here's how it ranks across all the other evaluators, which we have five of them. We have a total of five evaluators, and it'll get everybody's rankings. Like I might rate you a five, whoever else might rate you a three, and whoever else might rate you a four. It gets that average, and it'll say, well, based upon this, Gabriel's paper is ranked number 10. And then we just go down the order. We say, okay, all we're gonna take is the top 15. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 15. Come on over, and that's about it. And we keep the identities of who's on the speaker team completely anonymous, so that they could grade with honesty and integrity without having to a fear of any backlash.
I actually love the way like of this grade system because that's one of the hardest thing when you like go over. I went over CFPs in my life. I was like in a housing board, and that's really thing, right? Because at some point you lose your objectiveness not
Yep.
because of the CFPs. You lose your objectiveness because it's already the third hours that you go into that, or you already got over your quota of I'm like I'm a very positive person, so I'm like, okay, that's good, that's good, that's good. And 30 minutes after I'm like, okay, I filled my quota for the conference, what I'm doing now. And having this like kind of I'm sure it's not kind of random, but it's really good one. Also the anonymous part I think is very important, although sometimes it create people would think that the anonymous part will give a chance for new speakers, but sometimes the anonymous not the anonymous of the people who do the CFP. So some conferences also do anonymous on the names, so they give you like, okay, this is the title, now choose them. I think it's also something that is not that good because it's not really give an equal chance for everyone. But maybe like let's have this question of what is your top three advice for someone who wants to get their paper accepted? I
And
mean, think
I'm
about the
listening because
objectiveness.
I have something in store. I have never spoken at a conference, but I'm working at a talk right now, so I'm listening.
um, Honestly, or there is no a secret to getting your paper
I d-
chosen,
yeah,
whether it's at our conference or
I
any
don't
other
want it. I don't
conference.
want it to get into a secret. I mean, sorry if it was heard like that. At the end, CFP is a story, right?
Yeah.
And good stories has rules why they became a good story. And I'm
Mhm.
thinking like you saw thousands of CSPs, I guess.
Yeah.
You probably has something in your mind say, okay, that's a good
Yeah.
rule to make your story work well.
So I think the biggest thing when it goes to choosing the paper is, are you talking about something that other people haven't talked about yet? And if you are talking about a repeated topic, are you talking about it in a new and creative way? Like, are you going to give my audience a, a different perspective that I or even the audience has not heard of, even if it's a tired and true topic? I don't care if your paper is about, did you know that the earth is flat? I'd be like, interesting. Tell me more. Like when you write your CFP proposal, you want that to happen. You want to hook the audience with a tell me more. Did you know that the earth is flat? Interesting. Well, based upon this data that I have found, and I've been doing this for the last 5+ years, I can approve it based upon blah, 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 blah. I'm like, that sounds very interesting. And from a engineering or a software engineering point of view, it's like, did you know you could use React hooks like blah blah blah? I'll be like, oh wow, I did not know you could use hooks to achieve this. Well, I have a world class demo that will be able to show your audience how I was able to cut down how much time it takes for first time to paint using hooks this particular way. Because I use hooks this particular way, my organizations that I have contracted with were able to save X amount of dollars over each year. I believe that your audience will find a value in this right here. And then you start getting deeper. If you can show ownership of the topic and have an organized a thought all around the topic, you have a pretty good chance.
So if I'd summarize it, is like uniqueness, hooks, and ownership. That's the
Yeah,
3 points that could make your CFP. And I think that's also like something for new speakers or people who want to get into the public speaking world. That's a
yeah,
great advice. Make sure that your CFP, sure that you really own the topic and unique enough to make you like a good owner. And did you have hooks that make people to understand, okay, that's interesting. It's not like 10,000 feet. And
yeah,
also not, okay, I do not have anything to learn more than.
yeah. And it's like I I got tired of going to conferences, and every topic was how I broke into tech. I'm like, man, I've heard this topic 20 times. Like, I'm so tired of hearing about it. All right. But then you might have a person that come around and just change it up, like how I made half a million my first year in tech. I'm like, oh, tell me more, because I'm actually curious now. And in that talk, they talk about how they broke in. You're like, oh, okay, that's cool, you know. But I will say this too, that just because you put a lot of words and a ton of characters in your proposal does not make you a subject matter expert. I mean, ChatGPT is free. Okay, um, you do not need to write the next in a encyclopedia for your paper to be chosen. Some of the best proposals I have seen are only a paragraph, but they hit it very hard. But that goes back to what we talked about earlier. To make things that simple, they had to abstract out a lot of complexity and organize their thoughts and show ownership of their thoughts and the overall subject.
I think that's like the one paragraph CFPs sometimes could be the best, but of course I don't think it's something that you want to do as like a new speaker, because I think one important thing is CFP is also credentials.
Yeah.
And usually if you're not like a very good, like very well-known speaker, it's really important to have the credentials in the CFP themselves.
Yes.
So the audience and the people who considering the CFP can look at it and say, okay, they have the credentials. I can trust them that they will do great with it. Do you also, I mean, feel free to ignore this question, but do you also do speaker outreach for render or only like CFPs? And what is the percentage you recommend to do like?
When you say speaker outreach, what exactly does that mean to you?
So like usually keynotes is something that in every conference I was involved, keynotes is people that you actually outreach, not get organics from the CFP.
Mhm.
But the question if do you think that there is also percentage of talks that it's better to have a baseline of people that you outreach and make sure that they are at the conference?
Yeah, so I seed about a quarter of all of our talks with people that I know personally or people that I have outreach to. And the reason why I do that is because then I could assure quality control for both my corporate partners and my audience too. And the hardest part is not choosing them year over a year. You kind of get into a rut where you start to just choose people like, oh, you were good the last time. Let's try that again. you know, but the good thing is that over time, those people that you've chosen will start to also recommend other people that you could also identify with and that you know will be a good addition to the overall conference.
I have background noise, so I'm muting myself, and then I forgot to unmute, and I just speaking, and then no one heard that. I want to get to a point, so we discussed all of the agenda, and I think the 25% is interesting. I think it's also depend on the side of the conference and the community itself, because at some point, for example, if you do a local specific expertise conference, like let's say, I don't know, your local Python conference, local PyCon, it could be lower because you do not have enough known or quality known people in the community if it's new, and could be too few if you really want to have representative of the. But I think 25 sounds like good spots. I want to discuss. We do not have that much time. I'll just mention that if you have any questions, or we left like 12 minutes. If you have any question or thing that you want us to, I'm speaking to the people who watch the live stream. Anything, just comment where you are, no matter YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter. We see them all and we try to answer them live all. I want to get to a point that you mentioned earlier and talk about conferences KPIs. You mentioned that render is a party of engagement, right? That's the main like goal. Let's engage people. Let's have this party feeling, and etc. And for me, as someone who like partner of conference, do sponsorship, it took some time to understand that the real valuable, measurable thing from conferences is not the legion. Many people are looking for the legion, and they have like very strict objective. Okay, we want to get 25 meeting after the conference. We want to get 1,000 people to our newsletter. And I believe the real thing for conferences, both for organizers and for sponsors, is to make sure that they are engaged. That's the best goal, the best like objective you can get from a conference. But engaging is something that's hard to measure. What is your recommendation? How do you measure the successful or the success of the event based on?
So I measure the success of the event based upon how much do people talk about it on a social, and how much do I see in person people are beginning to form those groups of community, like we talked about earlier. When you put people first, great things happen. So I'm always like, okay, the conference happened, everything seemed like it went great. Let me go hop in Discord. Am I seeing people make new friendships? Or the conference is happening and I'm out and about, and I happen to come across a complete table of strangers that I know wouldn't have ever connected with each other outside of the conference. And I'm like, see, that's it right there. What it is that we created a great incubator for people that are coming from other walks of life, other parts of the globe, other parts of the country, to come and interact with each other and learn from each other to make the world a better place. Yes, it sounds cliche, but truly, when you are able to meet each other, you're able to then pour in to each other, whether that is financially, romantically, or just a straight up transactional like relationship. Like I had a partner tell me that they closed about $2 million worth of a business at the conference. I said, "Oh my God, that's like mind blowing." From them having a quick room of 10 to 12 customers at the conference, they were able to talk to their customer and close that amount of money quickly. And I knew right then and there that our thesis is pretty accurate, that it's about people first, everything else after. So to answer your question in a long way, it's about how do I see people interacting physically and digitally.
You were saying cliche, and I'm thinking, oh wow, that's beautiful. And so, guess says that more about me. But what I was thinking is that I just recently after Atlanta and after We Are Developers in Berlin, I wrote a piece about the fact that on one hand, yeah, like these deals happen. Sometimes you get into a room with your perfect clients and the people are ready to hear your pitch and they hear it and they fall in love. They want your product right now. They're willing to sign, a contract and
Mhm.
throw as much money as they can throw at you. But expecting, like going to a conference and expecting that to happen is a lot of times very detrimental for companies. I know that when I just started out
Very.
at Permit.io, we got to conferences and I'm like, okay, where are all the developers who want to use this product? Like, let me find them and talk to them and make them sign a paper that, and now I find myself, people approach the booth and they're like, I have a conversation with them about what the product is, and then they're like, well, you want to scan my badge? And I'm like, why? And then the look of relief that people have of like, wow, I'm so glad that I don't like that we don't have to do this because it's fake.
Mhm, mhm.
If you need me, you'll know where to find me. You need to know that I exist. You need to know that my product exists. I can, you know, if I can help you with my product, that's awesome. If I can help you with my blog, that's awesome. If I can help you with the socks that we made for the conference, that's also awesome. We shouldn't limit ourselves to this one type of interaction where we expect. I use the term unicorn of a customer or of a software developer to just stumble upon the booth and be like, wow, this is
Yeah.
exactly what I've been looking for my entire life. This solves all my problems. This low key engagement, like every tiny piece of engagement that we have at a conference, when a person comes to talk to us and asks us questions and takes our swag and looks at the marketing and assesses the product and assesses the website, every single one of those interactions is hugely beneficial, and we try for it to be beneficial for both sides. Um, we want these people talking to us to feel like they're learning something, they're getting something new. Nobody's pushing anything onto them, nobody's
Yep.
forcing them to use something they don't want. Like, they are curious, so they come to the booth, they ask a question, we gladly answer, and they learn from our answer and we learn from their response.
Yep. Exactly. That's the right mentality to have. Like I believe that some of the best lead gen isn't the leads that you get at that time. Usually they happen over time. And then you have to really have your data tight so that you can understand where that lead even came from. But if you've been to the conference, you've probably seen pictures or the a physical render trophy. It's a huge trophy that's all silvered out, right? I got it from a place here in Henry County in McDonough, Georgia, called Victory Trophies. And why do I know that name so well? Well, because I went to high school in Henry County, and when I would go on the track field or any place around my high school, it was always brought to you by Victory Trophies. Like all the trophies were handed out by Victory Trophies. Even my Letterman jacket, they created it, right? So here I am running a pretty successful company, and the year was 2022. It was probably like 30 days out, and I had a dream of us hoisting a trophy. And I told my team, and my office admin said, "Well, where the hell are we going to get a trophy from?" I said, "Oh, a Victory Trophy. It's only a half an hour, and we can get it back the same exact day." And they were like, "How the hell did you know that?" I'm like, "Oh, in high school, and like keep in mind, like I graduated from high school in 2009. We're talking about 2022, right?" And I said, "Oh, in high school, they had it everywhere." And sure enough, I drove down there and came across Victory Trophies. And I walked in there, and a lady was like, "How did you hear about it?" And then I was like, "Well, in high school, in 2009, y'all sponsored all of our trophies." And she told me that, "Oh, wow, like by you buying this trophy, it pays off." It's a long tail lead gen. Because after we bought that trophy, we went back and bought more trophies. We went back and bought more things. But I didn't need her services while in high school, but I needed them now. And it's other corporations that also play that game too, like Microsoft. That's why they hand out Microsoft Office to everybody, because it's an actual a book on this where Microsoft told people, sorry, Microsoft told their executives, if we hand out Office to all the schools, all we need in the school classroom, one classroom, we just need one of those kids to grow up one day and become an owner of a company. And if that one kid buys the office suite for his company, we have made our money back on our investment. And I was that kid. When I first formed the conference, I was like, I need Microsoft Office. That's what I need. Thankfully, I learned that we don't, because we can do the same thing cheaper with Google Sheets now. So, but because I paid it that one time, I basically paid for all of my classmates.
Yeah, you have to while you collect leads, in that way, you also need to make sure that you stay the Google Sheets of the side of the coin and not the Microsoft Office side of the coin.
Yeah, that's a great idea. We get actually to the end of our hour. I want to take the chance to thank you both, Justin and Daniel. If you want to say anything, that's your time. I got tons of, like, I'll say first myself. I got tons of new insights. I think like insights, not only insights, and it was really fun. Hour. It's actually passed too fast for me. I have like half of agenda, so we might need to do it like in another point to complete it. But
I'm
yeah,
always
thank
happy
you.
to.
Yeah, thank you very much, Justin, and thanks, Daniel.
Thank you for having me, Gabriel. It's nice to be on the other side of the camera for once.
Oh yeah.
Yep. And thank you so much for having me, y'all. Really looking forward to having y'all come back for 2025. It's going to be even
Well,
crazier. Our goal is to get to 7,000 conference attendees. So,
it will be awesome.
For
Yeah,
sure.
sure. Thanks,
all
man.
right, y'all.
And
Thanks,